we begin the portion of Shemos, which is the beginning of the Shibud, the bondage. And over here, the Ramban, there's an important Ramban. The Ramban writes, Hishlema Kosov Sefer Bereshis. The Torah completes the book of Bereshis. And what is Bereshis, the book of Bereshis? Shu Sefer Yitziro B'chidush Ha'olam Yitziras Kol Notzar. It's the book which discusses the formation and the renewal of existence of the world and the formation of all that exists. Ubimikri Ovos Kulam Shem Kein Yitziru Lazarom. And all the happenings of the patriarchs, which is the equivalent of creation for their progeny, as he will explain. B'mnesha kol mikreim, all their experiences. Tziyurei dvorim lirmos lodia kolo osid lo v'lohem. All their interactions, their experiences, are all depictions which allude to inform us about the future, what's meant to happen to Klal Yisrael, to the Jewish people, to their descendants, to their offspring. V'achar shehishlim hayitzira, after the book of formation, of creation is completed, which includes Maaseh Avos, the lives of the Avos HaKadoshim, the holy patriarchs, Hischol Sefer Acher bin Hamaseh Habo bin Aramos Mehem. Whatever is alluded to in the first book, speak about the Bris Bein Absorim, exactly how it unfolded, how it evolved. It started with the strife between Yosef and his brothers. Yaakov eventually went down with his family to Mitzrayim. V'nisyachet Sefer ve'elu Shmos bin Hagolos Harishon. And the Sefer Shmos specifically speaks about the first exile, Hanigzu Beferish, which was explicitly decreed in the Torah, Ubegulim Menu, and the redemption from it. L'chein Chazav Hischel B'Shmos Yordi Mitzrayim Misporom Alpi Shekvar Nichtav Zer. Although it already was mentioned at the end of Bereshis, the going down to Egypt, but again it's mentioned again, because this is the actualization of the Golus. Now we speak about what was alluded to in the first book, now is being actualized in the second book. So it begins with the Golus and with the Gula. Ki Ridosam Shabhu Reishis HaGolus. Going to Egypt is the beginning of the exile. Kimios Huchal. This is when the exile began. Now this is the point I want to bring out. V'nei HaGolus einenu nishlam ad yom shuvam el makomam. The Golus, the exile, is not complete until the time is completed that we return to our location and we are reinstated to the dimension of the patriarchs. Klal Yisrael has to be reinstated. That's the true Gula. When they left Egypt, although they left the house of slavery, of bondage, were still considered in exile. Why? They were in a locational land which was not theirs. They were locked into the desert. When they came to Har Sinai and they made the Mishkan, this is Osli Migdash V'Shchanti B'Socham. Make for me a sanctuary so I should dwell in your midst. V'Hishro Shchinosa B'Neim. And he allowed his divine presence to dwell in their midst. Oshavu El Malas Avosam. This is when they returned, they reinstated to the dimension, the spiritual dimension of their forefathers. Shahoyasod Eloka Oleim. This is the secret of God being upon the tents. Vehem Merkava. Klal Yisrael themselves, they became the Merkava. As the Avos HaKadoshim, each of one individually was considered the location of the Shekhinah, they themselves became the Merkava. was nechshu geulim, and then we were considered fully redeemed. L'chein nishlam ha-sefer hazeh, therefore this book, which is the book of Geula, how is it, what does it culminate with? Bishlimo in ha-mishkan, the building of the Mishkan, all its aspects, obios kavod Hashem mole also tomit, and how God's glory permeated it continuously. So when are we nigolim? When was the Geula? The Geula was, finally we were fully redeemed when it was Hisha Shchinos Beineim, or Shovu El Malas Avosam. Only then did they return to the dimension of their forefathers, which is they'll become the equivalent of the Merkava. It's interesting. The Avos was Hein Hein Merkava. What was the location of the Shechina, the divine presence, before the building of the Mishkan? It was where they were. Wherever Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov were, that was where the Shechina was. That was the location. It doesn't say, V'osi li migdosh v'shchanti b'socho. Make for me a sanctuary, I will dwell in it. V'shchanti b'sochom. So what the Torah is actually saying, why are we Geulim? Why are we redeemed? Because we're reinstated to the level of the patriarchs. The patriarchs, where was the Shechina? It wasn't at another location, and they visited the location. The Shechina was where they were. The medium for the Shechina to enter into this existence is through the location. But ultimately, where does it dwell? B'socham. So why are we nigolim? Why are we redeemed? Because each one of us are connected to that Shechina. So therefore, each of us are the equivalent of Avos HaKadoshim. The Avos HaKadoshim, they were at a level, they didn't need a medium for the divine presence directly to dwell upon them. We, because of the Chet Egel, because we became tainted, therefore we needed the medium of the Mishkan. But ultimately, after having that medium, where does it manifest itself? B'tocham, b'shachanti b'socham, in their midst. So being in our midst, that is the equivalent of Hein Hein Merkava. It said, the Or Chaim HaKodesh in last week's Parsha asks, the Medrash tells us, Yordu l'Mitzrayim golo shchini moyim. When they went to Egypt, the divine presence went with them. So we ask the question, the Or Chaim HaKodesh, we find that later, when during the Esem Makos, the 10 plagues, when Moshe had to pray, be mispal, that the plague should cease, it says he went outside of the city to pray. So Chazal tells us, why did he have to go outside the city? That since Egypt was so impure, such a level of purity, the Shekhinah was not in Mitzrayim. So if that's the case, how does it say when we went to Mitzrayim, Shechini Moyim, the Shekhinah went there? So you could say, maybe initially when we came to Mitzrayim, Egypt didn't fall to that level yet. The level of intensity of impurity wasn't at that level yet. This is after we were in bondage, after the Egyptians sinned by enslaving us, so they fell to the lowest level. As it says, we were holding the Memtes Shari Tuma. It was the lowest level of what? We're literally at the brink of spiritual extinction. That was the level when we left Mitzrayim. So it could be at that period of time, Moshe had to go outside of the city, because they themselves regressed or fell to a level of impurity which the Shekhinah did not go into Mitzrayim. So initially, Yardu Mitzrayim, Shechini Moim. The Shekhinah went with us. But afterwards, maybe the Shekhinah had to depart to go outside of Mitzrayim because of a level of impurity. He himself answered that when we speak about Shekhinah, the different levels of Shekhinah. There's the Shekhinah of the equivalent, the Mishkan. There's the Shekhinah on Har Sinai. The Shekhinah which comes upon a Navi, a prophet, when he prophesies. When 10 people study Torah, Shechini Moyim. 5 people study Torah. The different levels or grades of divine presence. So what Moshe had to pray to, it had to be the ultimate level. It had to be a greater level. That greater level was not Mitzrayim. So when Chazal tells, the Midrash tells us, Kshiyodu Mitzrayim, when they went to Egypt, the divine presence went with them, Yardi Mayim, it's a lesser degree of divine presence. That's what he says. So what I wanted to say was that, and as the Maral explains, but not within this particular context, that why was Parshas Vaychi, Parshas Tumah, it's a sealed Parsha? Because when Yaakov passed away, it was Nistum Einayim V'Libim Shel Yisrael Neitzaras Hashibud. The eyes and the hearts of Klal Yisrael became sealed because of the intensity of the shibud, of the bondage, even though physically we weren't enslaved. What are we speaking about? We're talking about there was an impurity. As long as Yaakov was alive, that impurity could not seep in. We were totally insulated as if we were in another location, as if we were not in Egypt. Once Yaakov passes away, that special barrier that countered any negative influence was, so they would start to seep in. This is the Nisnu Einayim, the Libim Shel Yisrael, Neitzaras Hashibud. This is when it began. So at a very slight, infinitesimal level, the erosion, spiritual erosion began. That's it began. Therefore, it's Parshas Tumah. That's what the Torah is alluding. Meaning, if you would see it, or I would see it, or anyone would see it, you wouldn't be able to detect it. But by the Torah writing the Parsha of Vaychi as a sealed Parsha, the Torah is revealing that reality. Otherwise, we wouldn't even realize it. Because it says, when did the bondage start? Only after the whole generation passed away. But definitely, Yosef. Yosef is the viceroy. Yosef, who Mashbir, he's the sustainer. We were treated like royalty. We had all the infrastructure that's needed to live as Torah Jews, as believing Jews, and so on and so forth. Maybe you'd say we were totally unaffected by the Torah writing the paragraph structure of Vaychi as a sealed parsha. The Torah is revealing, no. With Yosef and all the family, it's irrelevant. And Yaakov not being there, now we're being at some level influenced. But as long as Yaakov was there, we were not. This is how the Maral explains the Parsha Stuma, what Yaakov was, and when he was no longer there, why we were vulnerable to some degree. What I added was, who was Yaakov? Yaakov, among all the patriarchs, he was the Bechir Shebavos. He was the most special of all three of them. Yaakov was the Merkava. When the Shekhinah, Yaakov went to Egypt with the Shekhinah. He is the Merkava. We don't find that when he went to Egypt, he ceased to be the Merkava. He did not cease to be the location of the Shekhinah. So as long as Yaakov was alive, where was the Shekhinah? No less than in the Holy of Holies, where Yaakov was. When you have that level of Shekhinah, everything is negated. Everything's subsumed. Any impurity is vaporized. As a result of that, as long as he was alive, the impurity of Egypt was irrelevant. Had no relevance to his family. Once he passed away, so now, who replaces the Merkava? We have to wait till Sinai. We have to wait till the building of the Mishkan. That's the Merkava. So it's not a question. Yardu Avosenu, Golu Avosenu Mitzrayim, Yardu Shechina Moyim. When we went to Egypt, the Shechina went with us. But how's it possible? Moshe had to leave. Because when Yaakov was there, it was Heinen HaMerkava. He's the Holy of Holies going to Egypt. If that's the case, Egypt is irrelevant. It's as if Egypt doesn't exist regarding Yaakov and his family. Once he passes away, that was another level. Shekhinah is no longer there. So we could say the other lesser level of Shekhinah. But initially, what was the intensity of Shekhinah? Intensity was Heinen HaMerkava. I once explained, we find that Bilam, who was personified evil, he himself, he told Balak to build 7 altars and to bring sacrifices. And he says to Hashem, says to God, he says, I brought more sacrifices than all the patriarchs, than all their forefathers, and so on and so forth. That's what Bilam says to Hashem. But what didn't Bilam understand? So we explained, we find there's a concept known as, we have the Mishkan. Mishkan is, as the Torah describes what the Mishkan is. What is the Mishkan? It's the location where the Aron is. You have a Holy of Holies. Where was the Shekhinah? Bein HaKruvim, between the cherubs, where the ark was. Then we have another status. It's called Bama. It's called the private altar. You can have a public altar, you have a private altar. But everybody agrees in a private altar, in a Bama, you're not able to bring a sacrifice which is eaten. You bring a burnt offering. Only in the Mishkan or in the Beis HaMikdash, where the Shekhinah was only there, could you bring other types of sacrifices. Why? Because the korbanos, the sacrifices that were brought in the Mishkan or in the Beis HaMikdash, in the temple, are referred to as Lifnei Hashem. A bamo, you build an altar in your backyard, on your rooftop, it's not before God. You're sacrificing to God, but it's not before God. So a sacrifice in the presence of God is at a much more advanced level than a sacrifice that's for God. Bilam didn't understand. The Avos HaKadoshim, they were the Merkava. They may have brought one sacrifice, but that was Lifnei Hashem. Whatever he did has no semblance, has no relevance to that dimension. Therefore, you could bring endless sacrifices. There's no comparison. What does Bilam understand? They brought sacrifice, I brought multiple more sacrifices. But he didn't understand. That's Lifnei Hashem. You're not living because you have no relevance to God. They had relevance to God. They were the receptacle for God's presence to dwell where they were. As a result of this, these are the names of the Bnei Yisrael who were coming to Egypt. So the Midrash asks a question, are they coming now? They've been there. 17 years prior to this moment, they came to Egypt. So what do you mean they're coming? Are they coming now? So the Midrash answers, it's been much time since they came to Egypt. As long as Yosef was alive, the burden of Egypt was not upon them. As long as Yosef was alive. Meis Yosef, but the moment Yosef passed away, Nosalim Masui. They already had certain responsibilities. They had a burden. So when Yosef passes away, although the generation is still alive, but there was some degree of burden. They were burdened with Egypt. As a result of that, since there was such a change, as long as Yosef was alive, they had no sense of anything. It was the equivalent they weren't even in Egypt. When did they have a sense they were in Egypt? They sensed it when Yosef passed away. As I said, when Yaakov passed away, they have no sense of anything. Why? Because it was at such a subtle level. If the Torah wouldn't have revealed it through the Parsha Stuma, we wouldn't have known it. The Torah says no. The change is taking place. At a certain subtle level, there's some degree of seepage, of impurity. But when Yosef passed away, it was noticeable. Although it wasn't the bondage in the true sense, but there was masui. There's a distraction. Ki lo osayim nichlusu l'Mitzrayim, Eis Yaakov, kol elim b'koch shel Yaakov ishu beiso. There's a question which is asked by the Maral. We find that we went to Egypt because of the covenant between the parts, the Bris Bein Absorim. And what did Hashem say? That we're going to be in Egypt for 400 years. But we were in Egypt only 210 years. So Chazal tell us, and Rashi cites this, that we begin counting the bondage from the birth of Yitzhak. Because as it says, what did God say to Avram? Ye yir zaracho. Your progeny will be strangers in the land which is not theirs. Ger, Zaracha. Who's Zaracha? Yitzchak was the Zaracha. It was spoken to Avram Avinu. He's Zaracha, your progeny. So we began calculating the time from the birth of Yitzchak till we left Egypt. It's 400 years. It's Chazal, that's the Medrash. So the Maral asks, from the time Yitzchak was born, Avram was Nasi Elokim. He was a prince of God. He was already a victor. He already vanquished the four mightiest kings. He had wealth, which was one of a kind of wealth. He had renown, as Hashem Baruch promised him. You go to the land, wealth, renown, children, everything. So, how could this be? You're going to be in bondage? What level of bondage is this? Egypt is bondage. Yitzchak, also. He was oblivious. Initially, he was unaware of Esav's behavior. He was never aware who Esav truly was. So what was his bondage? So he had some difficulty with Avimelech. He dug wells. They sealed the wells back and forth. They asked him to leave. He became phenomenally wealthy, so on and so forth. He lived a full life, 180 years. Yaakov, you could say, he experienced bondage, Golus. He had to deal with an Esav, all the strife. He had to flee. Lavan, Dinah being raped, his wife dying. Yosef and his children believing his son died. You could add that's bondage. He really suffered. As Yaakov is the patriarch of Golus, the patriarch of exile. But if we begin calculating with the birth of Yitzchak, why is that considered Golus? So the Maral explains that what is Golus? Golus is exile. You really feel, I don't belong here. This is not my location. Everything that the location represents is solely contrary, totally contrary to whatever I am, what I represent. My perspectives, my values have no relevance. There's no common ground at any level. And literally, you're in a state of pain, seeing things. Very often the Torah says, speaks about the abominations of Egypt, the abominations of Canaan. In today's day and age, is there anything which is called an abomination? In terms of societal values, there's no abomination. Is there a word, is there a profanity in today's society? Is there a vulgarity in society? Society has fallen to such a level. Nothing is vulgar, nothing's profane, nothing is anything. So what is it? But if you're spiritually attuned, and we can't even fathom who the Avos HaKadoshim were. So being exposed to something which is truly toeva, which is the abomination, idolatry, paganism, human sacrifice, every level of perversion and depravity, living in the time of Sodom, what these people were, Roim v'chaton l'Hashem ma'od, evil, wanting to defy God in the worst way. How did Avram deal with all this? He was pained by all this. He experienced exile. His children experienced exile. The Shvatim, the Shiftei Koh, they experienced exile. This is something which was intolerable. They had to put up with it, and they had to insulate themselves, to take every precaution, to distance themselves from this. That's exile. What happened when we come to Egypt? As long as the generation is alive, things are okay. What happens when that whole generation passed away? So the Torah tells us Yosef and all his brothers, that whole generation passed away. They became fruitful. They started a team, increased in number, became empowered. And the land became filled with them. A new king arose over Mitzrayim. asher lo yodas Yosef. So over here, the Seforno explains, Afbi shoyu zichro mimenu divrei hamlochim yomi bimlochim lisofik. You have Egyptian history. You mean to say, in the Chronicles of Egypt, Yosef being the viceroy, being the sustainer of Egypt, how he saved the land, the years of plenty and the years of famine, and so on and so forth. All the wealth of the world came to Egypt due to Yosef. And he was known as a monarch who his level of integrity and honesty was impeccable, above reproach. He says, there's no question, everything's recorded in the Chronicles of Egypt. Befrat inyan hachidush shesom lechok lo'os halev hamelech hachodesh efshoros Yosef yezeom v'shoy amze roy losis ponim la'ambo bavuro. The king, the new king, couldn't believe that this people is the same people as part of that original people. There was no semblance of comparison. You know, God forbid you meet a great-grandson. There was a certain politician. He was a great descended from Rabbi Kalatsky, the Kovner Rav, Spectre. Thank God his grandson didn't marry out of the faith, but he had no semblance of a Jew. You're a descendant of the Kovner Rav, Rabbi Kalatsky, Spectre. It's hard to believe. There's no level of anything to equate B to A. Worlds apart. Therefore, conscious, he had no problem. He could reconcile it with his conscience. These people are not part of those people. The new people. So even though it's the same king, he can establish a new mandate. Although it's recorded, it's irrelevant. Everything's irrelevant. But what happened to us? What happened to the Jews? There's a medrash. Omra Novi. The Novi says, Ba'Shem Bagodu. They betrayed God. Yivonim Zorim Yolodu. Because they fathered alien children. Ato Yochlim Chodesh. Now the Chodesh will consume them. What does that mean? Why are they alien children? Alien means they have no semblance of identification with the original Jews. Shumolidim v'lo molin. They had children, they stopped circumcising themselves in Egypt. L'lamedcho kishemes Yosef hefiru bris milah. When Yosef passed away, they nullified the bris milah, the circumcision. What did they say? Amru niyak mitzrayim. We're going to be like the Egyptians. When God saw, if this is what you're doing, everything's measure for measure. You'll nullify our relationship. God nullified his love that he had for us. You cancel your side, I cancel my side. He turned the hearts of the Egyptians to despise his nation. So why did the Egyptians, initially, they didn't despise us? Why? He turned their hearts. Ata yochleim chodesh. Chodesh ksiv. The way it's written without the vowels chodosh. Omad melech chodesh v'chidi shalem gzeros koshos. Because you became a new people that you don't identify with your ancestors. You nullified the covenant. Therefore, there's going to be a new relationship here. What do you mean he didn't know Yosef? Okay. So what are we saying now? What is Golus? I feel I cannot tolerate the environment. I'm being asphyxiated by the environment. I'm being suffocated. I'm being crushed. Because whatever this world represents, it consumes me. It's intolerable because of who I am. So I'm suffering. You suffer. What happens if you can make peace? Not only could you make peace with the environment, with society, with the values, it's something that you're attracted to, and you begin pursuing it, and you want to emulate it. This is not, is this exile? It's not exile. But God says you have to be 400 years in exile. So if you would have lived your life as your forefathers, as originally the 70 who came to Egypt, that's exile. We're here because we have to be here. It's an unfortunate necessity. We have to be here. But it's intolerable. We wish we weren't here. So we're experiencing Golos as Golos. But what happens if you experience Golos as Gan Eden, as you're in the Garden of Eden? So then it's a problem. Therefore, the one I will cause them to be Chodosh. I will turn their hearts to despise you. Although initially they admired you. They admired you. No longer admiration. They will see you in the worst light. And because of that, they're going to impose a level of bondage which is beyond your capacity to tolerate. That's avodas perech. Back-breaking, all-consuming bondage. Speak about a famous word from the Ramchal. Although the Gemara tells us that that one's yearly stipend is determined on Rosh Hashanah throughout the year till the next Rosh Hashanah, but nevertheless, a person has to take initiative to receive whatever was designated for him. See, he says, why? Why does one have to take initiative? Because after Adam had eaten from the Eitz Hadas, from the tree of knowledge, mankind was cursed. What was the curse? By the sweat of your brow you shall eat bread. So once you meet the criteria by the sweat of your brow, that releases the stipend. But until you meet that, one that is not eligible for the stipend. So the release is what? That's the release. That's what we call the springboard. That's the release. That springs it and opens it, that you're able to acquire it. If a person lives his life of spirituality, dedicated to God, Avodas Hashem, but factually, as it says in Chazal, Mein Kemach Ein Torah, we're physical beings. We have to live responsibly as physical beings. You have to eat properly. You have to sleep properly. You have to tend to all your physical needs as a responsible human being. Not in excess, but whatever's needed. So every little bit now, but if a person's dedicated to Avodas Hashem, if you have to take out time to work, to earn money, to provide for yourself, what is that? You're taking time out from serving God. What is that? It's pain. So any amount of time that I take out, the person is truly the servant of Hashem. What's happening? It's b'zeh sapecho. So how much time out does he have to take out to meet the criteria of b'zeh sapecho? Not much. So whatever God designated for him, he doesn't have to do much to have it released. Another person, when he sits and studies Torah, when he prays, when he does anything in the spiritual realm, he's pained. To the contrary. He wants to be rid of it. So he has a lot of time in his hand. 40-hour week. What do you do outside the 40 hours that you're in the office? You have all the time in the world. 36-hour week. So what's Zeis HaPecha? The Zeis HaPecha. So if that's the case, maybe you're not even receiving all that was designated for you. You want to receive it, you have to go overtime. You have to really put your shoulder to the wheel. You have to really sweat. Only by sweating your brow. You're not sweating enough. Therefore, you don't get the stipend. That's what it is. It's identical. If you experience life as golus, this is not my place. A person, the Mechaber rules, the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, that a person every day has to mourn the Churban Abayis, the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Every day. Why? Even if you don't say Tikkun Chatzos. One doesn't get up at midnight and cry for the destruction of the temple. What is it? Because the Shekhinah is what is pained. God is pained. As it says, the Gemara says, that a number of times during the day, there's a cooing sound, Yerushalayim. And what is it? And Eliyahu Novi, Eliyahu explained to the Rabbi Yossi, God bemoans the fact that his children were exiled from his table, that his sanctuary lies in ruins and is burnt. God is pained by this. Do you feel God's pain? We're in Golus. When we mourn Tisha B'Av, what are we mourning? That is an Arab Intifada. Yimach Shmam. Is that what we're mourning? That we don't have full control. We don't feel safe. Is that what we're mourning? We're mourning that the Shekhinah is not. Divine presence. The spirituality of Klal Yisrael is not where it should be. When we haven't been reinstated, as it says, the Ramban says. What's Geula? When are we redeemed? If we're reinstated to the level of the Avos HaKadoshim. What is that? V'shachanti b'socham. God dwells in our midst. Golus, he's not dwelling in our midst. So until that happens, God is pained. Do we feel that lack? We say, Baruch Hashem, it's more Torah study today than ever in the world. So why does the world look the way it looks? Why do Jews look the way they look? Why hasn't Mashiach come yet? It's a question. So evidently, each person has to do his own soul searching to understand what's lacking. Evidently, there's something seriously lacking. Evidently, it's like the Yerushalmi says, that any generation the Beis HaMikdash is not rebuilt, it's like it's been destroyed. That means the deficiency of Sinas Chinam hasn't been addressed. Because if it was corrected, it would be restored. If it hasn't been restored, we're culpable. It's within our power to restore it. We haven't restored it. So are we experiencing Golus as Golus? Is Golus because there's anti-Semitism? Is that Golus? The Avos HaKadoshim, was it the anti-Semitism? Was it the Esav Soni Liakov? That wasn't the Golus. Of course it is, it's suffering. But what they suffered was because they couldn't tolerate the impurities, the depravity of the world. That's what they couldn't tolerate. That was their Golus. Once told over a story that Napoleon, he wanted Pressburg to surrender to his armies. And they wouldn't. And this is when the Chassam Sofer was in Pressburg. He had his yeshiva there, he had his community. And they went and they destroyed Pressburg. Every structure was totally destroyed. Everything was in ruins, and they left the community for a number of years just to seek out safe ground, safe haven. Otherwise, they would have been killed. After Napoleon was defeated, they came back. It took them a number of years to rebuild Pressburg. Their homes, the shuls, the yeshivas, the whole Jewish infrastructure was rebuilt in the most elaborate, beautiful. Kiddush Hashem, the way it was rebuilt, it was what to be admired. Secure. So now they have this inaugural opening to rededicate the community. So they have a banquet, the whole community is invited to celebrate rededication of the community. The shul, the yeshiva, the mikveh, the homes. Life's going to start anew now. And they have speakers, one after another, singing the praises of Hashem for allowing them to restart their lives again, reestablish themselves. And the Chassam Sofer was the leading Torah sage of the generation. In his time, he gets up and he starts sobbing uncontrollably. They can't understand it. And it wasn't tears of joy. It was tears of pain. And he begins speaking. And he says, when Pressburg was destroyed by Napoleon, he believed this was Chevlei Mashiach. These were the birth pangs of Mashiach. The Mashiach was about to come. But now he sees God allowed us to rebuild. We could be here for another 500 years. Seemingly Mashiach is not coming. And he's pained and he's crying. You understand what the Chassam Sofi processed this? Everybody is ecstatic, celebrating. This is the ultimate. He says, they both all saw the same thing. He saw something totally different. Here he saw we were at the threshold of the Shekhinah coming. We're about to return. It's not so simple. I always say, Shlomo Melech is Chochem Mikol Odom. He says, there's a time to laugh, there's a time to cry. It's profound. Do I need Shlomo Melech, Chochem Mikol Odom to tell me that? There's a time to laugh and there's a time to cry. Is that I need the wisest man to tell me? It's obvious. I need the wisest man to tell me this. There are times where people, they're celebrating, but the Chassam Sofer cried. You have to have special sensitivity and perception. And you have to have a certain capacity to understand when you're supposed to laugh, celebrate when you're supposed to cry. It's a bitter joy, so to say. It's better than being killed, being destroyed, being maimed, being enslaved. But it's a bitter joy. Because it could have been something other than it is. Okay? So that's what Hashem says. Until Yosef passed away, they circumcised themselves. They had relevance. They had a capacity to appreciate what depravity is, what the abominations of Egypt is, what is unacceptable. But now what was unacceptable becomes acceptable. What initially was revolting now becomes attractive. It's a problem. God says it's a problem. The people you want to be like, they will despise you. They will torture you. They will kill you. They're going to enslave you. You're going to become their chattels. You were free men, you were royalty, now you're going to become their chattels. To have an understanding what this is all about. Torah tells us that as time went on, the bondage intensified. Torah says, "Vayimoru es chayim ba'avoda kosher b'chol meluvenim." They embittered their lives with hard work, with chomer, with mortar and bricks, with everything difficult. So the Seforno says, "Vayimoru es chayim kasher hosifu lachto b'deis ha'memasim." It started without circumcising themselves, but it went from bad to worse. When they continue to sin in belief and in behavior. Moshe Novi B'omru Vayimru bi v'lo ovu l'shmo Eli. They defied me. They weren't willing to listen to me. Ish yikutze eneim lo ishlichu. They did not throw away the putain rodents of their eyes, meaning idolatry. They did not abandon the idols of Egypt. Therefore, I will spill my wrath upon them. To expend my wrath upon them. Therefore, the hand of Egypt continued to intensify. Based on their behavior, it went from bad to worse, and even worse than that. But why? The more they regressed, the more Hashem. it's interesting. You find, as I said earlier, there's a precondition to receive what's necessary. Through the sweat of your brow you shall eat bread. So some people, even with a slight degree of distraction, it's by the sweat of your brow. That's why for Yishol Salanter, if he would, for him, Hishtadlus initiative, he would buy once a year an Austrian sweepstake ticket. That was his Hishtadlus. Outside of that, he did nothing else. Somehow, things worked out financially for him. There was a story in the Chofetz Chaim. The only people who would engage in Torah discussion with him, only two people, Rebbe Chanan Wasserman, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, and a Ponevezher Rav. Otherwise, he'd only speak Musar, Hashkofa, but in terms of to engage in halachic discussion or Torah discussion, only with Rebbe Chanan Wasserman and the Ponevezher Rav. And so they were studying late at night, and they had seen that the Chofetz Chaim in the Be'er Halacha cites a certain work. And they were studying, they wanted to see, read it inside, the source of that particular piece of information. So they went to the Chofetz Chaim, middle of the night, it must have been 2, 3 in the morning, and they see the lights on. So they knock gently, Chofetz Chaim comes to the door, and he says, admits them into his house, and he says, we'd like to borrow this sefer, this particular work that you cite in the Be'er Halacha, in the Mishnah Berurah. So he says, the truth is, the last time I saw that sefer, that particular work, was like over 60 years ago, which I only borrowed. And he says, he shows him his bookshelf. He says, I only have a few volumes of Torah works on my shelf. And as he says it, he sighs. He lets out a sigh. So they asked him, why are you sighing? He says, the reason why I'm sighing is because whatever you have costs money. Cost money, there's a cost factor. So if it costs money, you have to earn the money. Money is time. So whatever time you have to take out to earn money, you're taking away time from Torah. The Chofetz Chaim is sighing. You understand what this is? He has to earn money to purchase Svarim, and he's sighing. So what's this? Chofetz Chaim? By the sweat of his brow. Any moment he had to detach himself, even to purchase Svarim. He sighs. Let's use another. He groans. He's paying for it. Because money is time, and time is life. And what is life? The study of Torah. And therefore he has to take himself away from this. Famous story with Chofetz Chaim. He was a wealthy Jew who visited Radin, and he comes to the Chofetz Chaim, and he says, the Chofetz Chaim says to him, he says, in America they say, time is money. Factually, it's a coined phrase from Benjamin Franklin. Time is money. You have time, you make money. He says, I disagree. Money is time. When you have money, then you have time. Then you have life, because life is time, and that's when you could take advantage of life. So it's the other way. It's not time is money. When you have money, then you have time. When you have time, then you have life. Then you're able to study Torah. You're able to focus on why you're on this, why you exist in this existence. So again, so for the Chofetz Chaim, what was B'zeh Sapecha Toch Alechem? How much did he need for B'zeh Sapecha Toch Alechem? I always say, nobody's perfect. And everybody has a debt account. And how does a person pay the debt account? You have to do tshuva. There's certain sins that you have to suffer. The suffering which is needed. What we call yisurim. A person who's truly committed to serve Hashem. What's suffering? If a person fails in doing a mitzvah, a person says the Shemon Esrei v'Amida, and he feels he was distracted. He couldn't concentrate sufficiently. He's disappointed with himself. He's upset with himself. So what? Person, l'havdil, misses a business opportunity. right? Calls his doctor to prescribe some medication, right, to calm him. This person, if he's not mechaving, he's not able to focus for whatever reason, he's pained. He's upset about it. He gets a report that his son in yeshiva, he's not studying as he should be studying. He's pained by it. That's aggravation for a parent. Other people think, you think that's trouble? You should hear what my trouble is. Lahavdil, he was arrested. You understand? That's maybe pain. Even today for parents, that's not pain. That's where society has come to. So what's Yisurim? Everything's relative to the person. But suffering is whether you truly suffer. For what do you suffer? That's what it's about. But again, that's all based on your spiritual quotient. What is your spiritual quotient? Klal Yisrael initially, what was our spiritual quotient? Any degree of exposure to something which was not pure, that's golus. That's suffering. Afterwards, it was to the contrary. We can't have enough of that. So now, unfortunately, but God says you have to have 400 years of exile, of affliction, of bondage. Okay? It has to be meted out as it has to be meted out. That was the Avodas Perach. So I want to end with one thing. We find that Moshe, fast forwarding a little bit, after he had come out of the palace, he was the adopted son of the daughter of Paro, and he sees an Egyptian beating a Jew, and he kills him. And then, next day, he sees two Jews fighting. And he wasn't sure, because he knew, even though he's the adopted grandson of Paro, if it's found out that he killed an Egyptian, he has to flee from Egypt. He has to seek refuge. He's become a fugitive. Dosan and Aviram, they're fighting with one another, and he raises his hand to strike his fellow, and Moshe says to him, Rosha Lamasak Yisraecha, evil one, even by lifting your hand to strike your fellow Jew, you're evil. They reacted very severely, and they went and informed the Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay? And he had to flee for many years from Egypt. As a young man, he had no idea what that exile would bring. He no longer has the protection of his adopted mother, of his real parents. We knew they were Avram and Yocheved, Shevet Levi. He was part of Shevet Levi. He knew this. And when he struck the Egyptian, he already had Ruach HaKodesh, as it says, because it says he looked in every direction, and he saw through his divine vision what happened, and this man will have no descendant who will ever convert, and that's when he took his life. So a Tom person had a special spiritual dimension. And now he has to flee into the oblivion. He has no idea where he's going. And who caused it? Dosan Aviram. He returns at the age of 80. And things get worse. And he's coming out from Paro, and who do they meet? They're going to Paro, and who do they meet coming out? Dosan Aviram. And they reprimand Moshe and Aaron. He says, you've caused our situation to get worse. And he speaks very strongly to Moshe Rabbeinu on a most disrespectful level. They leave Egypt, Dosan Aviram comes with them. Whenever there's a problem, Dosan Aviram. Finally, they're swallowed up by the earth, together with the congregation of Korach. And according to the Ohr HaChaim HaKodesh, even though Korach himself was a bad person, he was totally consumed with what? He was an honor seeker. And his ego was inflated, but who really agitated everything was Dosan Aviram. They were the evil ones. So the difficulty was, or is, what did Moshe put up with all this? Moshe, his status was a king. He should have limited them. He should have incarcerated them. He should have incapacitated them. Not to give them any freedom of movement. But they behaved as if what? They are his equal. And they spoke to him as if he was equal. Why did he tolerate? Why did he put up with this? But he did. So I explained it based on the Midrash. That the Midrash cites a pasuk in Koheles, Shlomo says, "V'lokimi vakesh es nirdof." God seeks out the pursued. I mean, he favors the pursued. So one of the examples the Midrash gives, who was the pursued? Moshe was the pursued. Because after he killed the Egyptian, he had to flee from Egypt. So Moshe was pursued by who? Was pursued by Paro. And Paro's tentacles reached all over the world. So it says over here in the Midrash, Moshe Nirdov Mivnei Paro. He was pursued by Paro. And because Elokimi Vakesh Nirdov, the pasuk says, Lule Moshe Bechiro. That God would have destroyed the Jewish people if not for the supplication of Moshe, his chosen one. So why is Moshe Bechiro? Because he was a Nirdov. Because he was pursued. So why was Moshe able to achieve his level of special relation with God that only his tefillah could have saved the Jewish people? Because Moshe, it says, Lule Moshe Bechiro, I would have destroyed the Jewish people. Because Elokim Vakesh Nirdov. And who was he pursued by Paro? And why was he pursued by Paro? Because Das Navirim informed on him. So ultimately, they were very bad. They were evil. Ultimately, they were swallowed up by the earth. But who created the momentum that catapulted him to that special level of Bechiro? Das Navirim. Moshe Rabbeinu transcended his personal conflicts. He had no personal conflicts. He was pure. There was no self by Moshe. Nachnu mo. I live purely for God. He had absolute clarity. Why am I here? Because I'm here. Because two Jews informed on me. So what level of thank you do I owe them? What debt of gratitude do I have to them? As bad as they are, it's irrelevant. He says, when God is ready to take them, he will take them. He did. Adas Korach, they were taken then. Until then, that's all part of that's part of Hashgacha. That's Hashgacha. God will allow things to evolve, and what's meant to be will be, and I will act responsibly. But to incarcerate them, to limit them, or to destroy them, that I can't do, because that will be contrary to to a debt of gratitude that I owe them, because it's only due to them was I able to achieve the level of Lulei Moshe Bechiro.